you have to solve these problems. But so let's say we build something that's totally under our control, it works perfectly, and we don't have to worry about the control problem. We still have to worry about the political and economic effects of building something that's going to put the better part of humanity out of work, right? I mean, you're talking about now something that can build further iterations of itself, where the cost of building versions of itself now is going to plummet to more or less the cost of raw materials. You're talking about a labor-saving device of a sort that no one has ever anticipated. And we don't have a political system that can absorb that. We have a political system where we would see the cover of the picture of some trillionaire on the cover of Inc. magazine, and we would hear that unemployment now is at 30% even among white-collar people.
So the first thing is just the term AI is confusing. There's a concept called anthropomorphism, which is applying human values, human emotions, things like that to non-human things. So we see the Terminator, we see other things where the robots turn evil and they have egos and they want control, they want power. That's not actually how it works. Computers of any kind, smart or stupid, want only things that they're programmed to want. And they'll never, turn on a human ego and suddenly say, I'm gonna take all the power for myself. It's also a very broad category. So your phone is full of AI, your calculator is AI, Gmail autofill, things like that. And so it's hard to understand, it's a concept that's hard to kind of, again, wrap your head around. And finally, once it works, no one calls it AI anymore. So no one refers to AI in their own lives. No one thinks about their car as having AI or their phone. But they, of course, do. And so to understand, really, you have to get that AI can mean something very different depending on the caliber. So the three calibers that experts talk about are what I call ANI, artificial narrow intelligence, or sometimes that's called weak AI. And that's something that is very, very, very good at one thing, or two things, but it's good at its own narrow purpose. So every single AI in our lives currently is ANI. So that's your calculator is a simple example. It's extremely good at multiplying huge numbers, way better than any human. But that's it. If you ask the calculator for dating advice, not going to be able to help out. More complicated example is like Google search engine. That's a pretty legit AI. It has a lot going on. It's still completely narrow. To get to the next level, which is what we call artificial general intelligence, or AGI, that's as smart as a human across the board. And that's the key, is the across the board thing. It's easy as humans to underestimate how much the breadth of our intelligence. And there's no computer that's come close to that before. Finally, you get to artificial superintelligence, which is a computer that is far smarter than a human, or as Nick Bostrom, who's one of the main thinkers in this area, has said, and it's an intellect that's much smarter than the best human brains in practically every field, including scientific creativity, general wisdom, and social skills. So social skills, wisdom, these are not things we think of a computer having. I mean, people laugh thinking about a computer having social skills, and they laugh because we're not anywhere close. But the kind of the ASI we're talking about, it's not just, the funny thing is that it's not just as good, it's more so, it's cooler than us. Like, it has really good social skills. Like, if you and the AI, all go for a girl together, it's going to get the girl because you have much worse social skills. And it's much wiser. It'll see the mistakes we're making so easily, like we would see a 3-year-old, making a big mistake. So, pretty crazy stuff. And so that kind of set up in my head what I think of as a road to superintelligence. And right now, where are we? We're here. We're in a world full of artificial narrow intelligence. There's AI in our cars, like the anti-lock brake systems. Our phones are full of AI. Half of the apps in your phone use AI. The internet, of course. When you see you're on Amazon and you see people who bought this also bought. That's not someone figuring that out. That's an AI system. That sometimes it's creepy where you talk to someone somewhere, or you email them, and then you go on you see LinkedIn, they're suggesting you're like, how did you know that I just talked to them? It's like, that's some AI creepy thing going on behind the scenes. There's your flight ticket prices and where the plane lands at the gate. All that is ANI. Other sectors, military, manufacturing, finance, expert systems like Watson, who was on Jeopardy. That's an IBM product that's made to be for medicine. It's meant to be like a medical expert who can answer doctors' questions, and so it's all over the place and it's growing. And it can mess things up. It can melt down a nuclear plant if an ANI goes wrong, or it can knock out a power grid, or crash the stock market, which has actually happened in certain. The flash crash of 2010 was an AI making a mistake and just doing what it was told, but we didn't think about a certain circumstance. But some people think of all these different ANI systems as amino acids, like the amino acids in the primordial ooze of the earth. They're the stuff of life, the amino acids, but they're not life. But one day, they woke up. And the question is, all these ANIs, are they kind of quietly, each one putting a brick on this road to something much, much, much bigger? So how does that happen? How do you get from ANI to AGI? Well, the thing that's hard, again, this is not an intuitive concept. This is all we have to kind of rework our thinking to understand this. We have a misunderstanding about what's hard and what's easy. So we think walking is easy, and so do dogs, and so do ants. But the reason is because there's actually incredible software in our brains that has been programmed by evolution over billions of years to have the kind of motor skills and the balance and the physics to walk. So if we say something like to an AI, we think calculus is hard, but calculus is actually pretty easy. And if you think about it for a second, engineering, calculus, this kind of stuff, that's invented pretty recently. So even though we have these great engineers now, all of us are pretty amateur at it. It's not ingrained in our brains to do that stuff. We had to learn it. We had to invent it. So anything like that we invented, that's a human creation in the last 100 or 1,000 years, super easy to make a computer that can do it. And the computer can just beat us right away. It's the things that we evolved over 3 billion years that are actually much harder. So if we tell a computer, okay, beat the world chess master in chess, the AI is like, no, it's no problem, I got it. We have AIs that do that. The AI is like, yeah, sit me down, I'll get it, and give me some coffee and whatever. But then we say, okay, also, I want you to read this word. And the AI is like, oh, shit. It's like, yeah, you made it slanty. And that's because we have a sense of what an R is. We know what the essence of an R or a B or a Q. But an AI doesn't. And if you actually think about this, if you wanted to program a computer, if your job is to program a computer to beat the world master at chess, you have to think about that. You might say, okay, I can see how that can maybe happen. But if you were told to get it to understand the essence of a bee, that's actually much, much harder. That's why these things work on things that are so smart. You could say to an AI, okay, I want you to memorize every street in the world and integrate with real-time satellite data so that you can instantly give me directions from any point in one country to another point, taking into account traffic accidents and construction, and do it instantly. And the AI is like, yeah, dude, I got it. It's not a problem. It's fine. And then you're like, okay, also, is this a dog or a cat? And the AI is like, Jesus! And so the AI will look at that thing and it'll explode with confusion, trying to figure out if that's a dog or a cat. And granted, that is kind of tough for humans too, I would say. But so you can all sum this concept up with what Donald Knuth said, which is AI has by now succeeded in doing essentially everything that requires thinking, but has failed to do what most people and animals do without thinking. Because without thinking stuff is the stuff that's actually 3.8 billion years evolved in us.
And so we need to, even if we were going to, it's humbling to realize that even if we were given the perfect labor-saving device, it could screw up the world. We couldn't reliably share that wealth with all of humanity, which is of course what we should do. But we're in a system where the Chinese and the Russians would probably reasonably worry that we're going to use this thing as the ultimate tool of war, right? Both terrestrial and cyber. So just imagine the cyber war and the drone war we could unleash on the rest of the world if we had the ultimate war-making computer, right? And they didn't. So this is like a winner-take-all scenario that is unsustainable politically. So we have to politically, we have to be in a position, and economically, where if this thing were handed to us, we could use it for benign purposes and share the wealth. And we're not there yet. And that is the best case scenario. That isn't even dealing with any of the problems of this thing having a will of its own, which of course it would.